Hey guys, my name is Nick and welcome back to the channel, and in a brief interlude to my Road to the Dark Zones, we are going to take a look at the Adeptus Titanicus. Now, as you well know, if you're a avid follower of the channel, how much I love my Knights and my Titans, and it's time to take a look at the small scale version. So I was fortunate enough to be one of the few at my friendly local gaming store to pick up a Grandmaster edition. So that is the big, super expensive version. Yes, is it going to be a game that sits on my shelf? Time will tell. But as an avid Titanicus Titan lover, hence the appropriate attire for this video, I felt that I couldn't not do this. You know, 20 years ago when this game first had its first edition, I was a massive fan of it. I love Titans. I love the grand scale of huge lumbering war machines, and to bring it to a small scale where we're going to get a chance to use them a bit more often than our 40k versions. As you know, I do have 40k versions, the large, silly, over-pointed stuff. It would be a good opportunity to see how they play in a slightly more tactical, slightly shrunken down version and give that a whirl. So without further ado, this video is going to unbox the Grandmaster Edition. Let's take a look at the goodies inside. Let's get straight into the video. So here we go then, guys. This is the Adeptus Titanicus Uberbox Grandmaster Edition. As you can see here, lots of rather nice shiny artwork. This is still shrink wrapped, as you can see. All my unboxings tend to be, as much as possible, from their brand new state, straight off the shelf, rather than sort of, you know, fake unboxing and then putting it all back together and then pretending I know what I'm talking about. This is pretty much as live as it's going to be. So as you can see on the back, we get a list of what's inside. We've got old school looking templates from what I can tell there. We've got some Questorus Knights, we've got two Warlords. We knew before we were getting this that there's going to be no Warhound and no Reaver Titan involved in this set. The production of those hadn't finished, although if we look at the social media from Warhammer Fest in Germany, we know that they are on their way. So let's take a look inside and see what the goodies are. So just getting the scalpel, get rid of this cellophane so we can have a look at the exciting contents. Now we know that the Grandmaster Edition comes with everything we need to get going. So rulebooks, buildings, knights, data cards, you name it, it comes with everything. Dice, measuring rulers, the whole shebang. But let's take a look and see exactly what we're going to get for our £175 retail. Now, I didn't pay full retail, and as we get to the end of the video, I'll pass judgment on my pricing structure. So it's a little bit better now that the glare of the cellophane isn't being overdone by my lighting in my little studio here. You can see that the artwork is pretty nice, to be honest, and being a Forge World publication, we know that the Forge World graphical artists are bloody good at their job, and that is a fair reflection on the front box here. Now, as we take off the lid and box quality, let's talk quality. I like to talk about the quality of my packaging. Very similar to Kill Team, really sturdy boxes, no flimsy collapsible boxes that we get from Games Workshop. It is pretty solid, you know, a la high-end electrical retail stuff. So Apple, Samsung, you name it, you know, that kind of box quality. So as we look inside and look at all our plastic goodness, we have those. They appear on face value to be old school templates. They are the same size from what I can tell, but there are some more interesting markings on them that are going to be reflective of the game. In the left hand side of the box then we have a bucket of sprues. We have 8 sprues of buildings. So that's those coming out on the left. This one here, we'll get to that in a second, but it includes objective markers and wheel markers so that you can orientate the models during the game. Now, I picked that up from some other reviews and some other online media to see what those were going to be about. So I knew that these were coming in the box, but that's pretty much those sprues. The rest are the models themselves, and we'll get to those in a second. Then we get this layer of card, which I'm hoping is going to be a poster, and indeed it is a replica of the box art. So without all the gumph over the front, it is a very nice rendition of that poster. I'm really liking the fact that we're getting posters of the box art in a lot of these new kits. Kill Team was exactly the same. There's a nice poster of the Kill Team box art. Really impressed with that. Now we also get a small excerpt from the Titanicus book from Dan Abnett. So I think I've read the whole book of that before, but there we go. It's a nice little freebie thrown in there. Then we have what appears to be all the instructions. So we've got little instructions, big instructions, that I'm guessing are going to be for the Questorus Knights, the Warlord Titan, and the terrain. We have two quick reference guides here. They are identical. I did just have a quick look here. They appear to be fully identical to me. That's going to be easy for your two players, so you haven't got to keep sharing information, which is very convenient. Then we have the hardback rulebook, so embossed, with there's a little page marker hanging at the bottom there. Typical Forge World, lovely production. This is going to look nice on the shelf. Some nice artwork, and it is, it feels like it's been produced by the Forge World studio. And in fact, just on the inside cover there, it does say produced by Forge World and printed in China, which seems to be pretty common these days, to be honest. So just we'll get back to this in a little bit. Just have a quick flick through while we're here. Lots of lovely, typical Forge World rendition artwork, so you can make your Legios in the colour schemes you want. And we have some little mini cards here. These I haven't opened these yet, but I'll open those in a second. But looking at the front one, these look to be weapon cards. So it's going to be carapace, left arm, right arm, whatever position these are going to be. They're going to fit onto some other cards that I can just see in the box now. Big bunch of new dice, look quite funky. Then we have some stratagem type cards here. So they've got points values on those, so I'm expecting those to work similarly to how 40k stratagems work, or Age of Sigmar stratagems work. We have a little measuring stick. Then we have a bunch of shrunken decal sheets. So we've got some for the Questorus, some for the Warlord in here. I'd imagine actually some of these would fit on armatures and so on, so you could probably use them in 40k, but we'll see. Then we have a bunch of cards, so very nice embossed backing, very, very high quality again. There doesn't seem to be expense spared on this. There's no flimsy little bits of sheeting here. It does look pretty good. And nothing else in the box. Now, initial disappointment over not having little baggies in like Kill Team to put those cards and dice in once they've been opened, but I'm sure I can find something suitable for those. So these are the model sprues, and you can see we've got a number of replications here, which was expected because there's lots of similar models. So let's just take a look at these small ones first. These are the Questorus Knights. And these are sort of typical half frame size from 40k, if you imagine the size of those when they get printed. And each of these would appear to contain 3 Questorus Knights. So we have 2 sprues, so we have 6 Questorus, which tallies up to the information we're giving on the back of the box. And as this contents contains 3 Questorus and 1 Warlord per side, well, we're going to get lots of duplicates. But looking very carefully at the pieces, they do look remarkably similar to their larger brothers, which, to get it into this kind of scale, is pretty impressive, really. Now, some of the parts that you might find on the Questorus, you have those arm sockets, which are made up of about 5 or 6 different pieces. They are a single piece on these. But, that's what you're going to get when you shrink down the scale. So these are the Warlord parts. We have 2 frames of pretty much all the weapons. So we've got volcano cannons and some of the carapace missile launchers and so on from looking at that sprue there. And then we have the armour and body sprues. You can see here we've got halves of the torsos, we've got the rear entrance, we've got their feet plates there. The feet plates of the real version are made up of the centre pad, 4 toes, and then 4 little armour panels. And these are a single piece on here, so that's going to make things a little bit easier than putting together the bigger version. And if you haven't caught out my series on the road to completing a Warlord Titan, I'll link you in the description below and put a little card up in the corner. You can see what a full-scale version will eventually look like when I finally start painting it. But it is assembled, so you can compare and contrast the baby version to the full version. And we got lots of armour panels here. So we've got the top carapace there, we've got lots of shoulder guards, leg armour and so on. So pretty much we've got 3 sprues per Warlord. And yes, we've got an armour panel one, a weapon one, and then we've got the sort of the integral structure, the skeleton part of it. The other sprue we get here contains some weird components. It looks like they're going to be objective markers and turning circle or weapon arc kind of indicators. Looking at the curvature of those, look like they could fit round a warlord base. So that's what I'm going to guess they are. Now what we're going to look at now is the terrain pieces. So you can see here we've got a total of 8 sprues, 4 smaller sprues, 4 larger sprues, and they are all identical. So it's actually only 2 different pieces, to be honest. But the detail is pretty good. It's not, it's not super fine detail. It's not sort of Kill Team or Sector Mechanicus type stuff. But this is going to be just to get in the way and block line of sight and so on. So it's going to make you feel a bit more immersive in the game than fighting around books or cans of Coke. But yeah, it looks suitably good, and it looks quite modular the way that this seems to be cut. Now the fact that we've got so many replica sprues would indicate the modular nature, so you can build small buildings and which should stack on top of other buildings and so on. The final piece of plastic then is the old school looking templates, but as I said, they do have some interesting markings on. So let's take a look inside what appears to be the instruction manual. So let's just cut that open, rip that off, and let's get into these bits here. So we have 3 documents that come inside this shrink wrap, and the first one is the Questorus Knight book. So I'd imagine that this is going to be for ease of what you're going to get in the individual box sets. Now you can buy the Questorus Knight triple kit, as is at the moment, and yeah, there we go, standard set of instructions on how to put your baby knights together. And you can see it's quite a lot of steps per knight, which is quite impressive. It means they should be relatively posable to a limited extent, but we'll see when we come to put them together. Then we have the warlord itself. Obviously we've got 2 inside the kit, so we're going to have to do this twice. And yeah, nice little pictures at the back, and then we've got all the build guide there. So we'll be getting onto that in a future video. And now we can have a look at the buildings. And you can see there that there's enough in there to make 6 individual HAB blocks or building blocks. And just looking at the way these kind of go together with these various slide-in floor panels and so on, yep, I'm pretty sure this is quite modular, quite stackable. So the idea being that you buy multiples of these and then you can enhance your battlefield accordingly. Just skimming through here, so we've got enough to make several different varied shapes, which is quite reasonable to me. Bear in mind, this should it be a pickup game? Time will tell, but it looks, yeah, it's enough to get your battlefield going. Disappointing a little bit that you don't have a board in here like Kill Team, but there we go. Just looking down that bottom left hand panel, that does appear to be the objective markers that were on that other sprue that had all the sort of turn indicators. And in fact, on the very back page we can see here the stackable modular nature. So you can see there you can take 4 buildings, stack them all together to make a larger building. Now that's going to be quite useful if you pick up more of these terrain kits. They are readily available, I believe, now, and hopefully there'll be more varied ones in the future as well, rather than looking at all this sort of blocky style. But time will tell on the support and release of terrain for this game. So now we move on to the big card pieces that come with this. Now these should represent each of your titans once I get my scalpel blade to cut that open. And yeah, inside these, I don't know what's exactly inside these because I can only see one side of it initially, but looking at this, we've got some small cards here which look to represent the Questorus Knights. You can see across the bottom there we've got the weapon options, we've got points and so on. We've got hull points, yeah, various bits of detail in order to run your mana pool of knights, or your Questorus Knights. So the little baby ones, yeah, they're exactly the same, so it's going to be 1 per side, which is quite convenient. So let's move on and take a look at what the other cards are that we get, these command terminals. So if I just hold this the right way up, that might be useful. So we've got a Reaver Titan one, so we have no model to the Reaver included in the kit, but we do have the mana pool card, which is, or the command card. That's pretty useful, so when we get the Reavers released, we're going to have the cards all ready for those. So we have 2 Reaver cards, then we have a Warhound card, so we've got 2 of those as well. Again, these models not available yet, but they will be. So at least we've got those cards in hand, ready to expand with the mid-tier Titans to add to our collection. And then we've got the Warlord Titans itself. So we know we've already got 2 Warlord Titan in the kit itself. But we know we're ready to expand with the mid-tier ones and the low-tier Knights as we go on. Disappointingly, though, for me, is that when you go and buy expansions for this, you're going to have to buy these cards separately, and they are Games Workshop Direct only. So if you want more command terminals for Reavers and Warlords and Warhounds, they're 15 quid for 5, and you have to buy them separate, and extra weapon slot cards as well, which I'm just opening now, are all separate and they're all direct only, so you can only buy those at full retail. I personally think that you should get the card in the kit, so I'm a bit disappointed with that. And as you can see here, we're just skimming through these little half-size cards. These contain all the weapons, whether they're carapace or left or right arm, and depending which Titan they belong to, and the points cost all indicated on the card. So if we've got a Warhound Inferno Cannon, for example, we can stick that on the right arm, and we can put a laser blaster on the other arm. And he doesn't have a carapace weapon, but the Reaver and the Warhound do, so there's a centre slot to put your carapace option in there. And being a potentially match play game, they're all pointed, so you can make sure that you and your buddies are playing even Stevens on the points. You can see there on the top left, tells you what model, top right tells you the points, and then we can stick that in the relevant slot, for example, there. And again, we can put that one in the Reaver slot, for example. And we just skim through here, we can just see exactly which weapons can go where. So we've got our left and right arm sorted for our Warlord, and then we've got a right arm there for the Reaver, and we'll just skim through just to see what else we've got. All the weapons are available. It's not just limited to just a couple of weapons. We have pretty much every weapon that's listed for the 40k version from the indexes as well, and from the Forge World publications, which is a good thing. So it means we're going to get all the weapon options available. We can just fill these out, and you can see exactly how you build up your command terminal here with these little cards. Next up then is the stratagem deck. So from what I can tell, as we start to open this up, there's some points listed at the bottom, and then there's some cool stratagems. So these look very similar, but on a different kind of scale, obviously, to our familiar stratagem point spending within 40k, Age of Sigmar these days, all using very similar methodology in order to make tactical decisions and to bolster your formidable army as is with some cool shenanigans. There's also some mission type cards at the end as well, and in fact if we look at the back, we have missions and stratagems even written on the back, so we know what deck we're talking about. So very good. And the quality of the cards, again, very similar to the standard 40k stratagem type cards, so they're pretty good. They don't look like they're going to tear super easy. Just to be super thorough, let's take a look at the dice, because there are some different dice. If you're used to 40k, you only play D6s these days. We've got some different dice in here. So we've actually got a bunch of D6, and on the 6 side we have a Titanicus symbol, which is pretty cool. Nice to see some thought gone into there. The dice are quite nicely sort of marbleized as well, so it's not just a really plain 1 to 6 dice. Every 6 has these Titanicus symbols on them, and we've got a bunch of those. Then we've got some other dice in here as well. So we've got some D10s. Haven't seen a D10 for a while. I was never a Dungeons and Dragons type player, so my collection of dice is always pretty much orientated around scatter dice and D6s. So I've owned a few of the more odd shaped dice, but it's never been my big forte. We have a dice with nuclear symbols on, so I assume that's related to reactor type activities, because I do know, talking to the designers when I was at Warhammer Fest, it's more about engine and reactor management as much as it is about shooting. So we've got reactor damage dice by the looks of it. We've also got the old school scatter dice as well. Haven't seen those for a while, but then should have expected that, having seen the templates that we've already got. So one can assume that weapons could potentially miss like they did in the olden days. We've also got some action type dice as well. There's some weird icons on there, but we haven't cracked open the rulebook yet, so I've got no idea what any of those mean. But yeah, there's the reactor dice. There's one that's got nothing on it, so, and then they range from 1 to 3 little reactor symbols, so that could determine the level of damage potentially. And then we've got the D10s there, and the scatter, and there we go. Finally, let's take a look at the rulebook. Apologies, the light does glare off of this type of this type of page, but I'll just change the angle in a second, and it'll be a lot easier to see. Typical Forge World style layout, and we can see it is produced by Forge World. They are looking after all specialist games, even though I said the release of this has been through mainstream stores rather than Forge World only. And then we've got a typical approach to how 40k or any Games Workshop game has been going on. You've got a full diorama kind of thing on the go, showing you what an in-progress game would actually look like. Just to give you an idea whether you're doing it right. And if you can see in the picture, there are Reaver Titans within that picture. So you can actually see, obviously there's some pre-production models that they've used for the playtesting and development of the game. We can see here, you know, just some in-game action shots and so on. And what I'll do is we'll just skim through a few more pages. You can see there's a list of all the different types of dice we've got up in the top left, just to tell you what those are all about. And then we can just skim through some of the other pages, and you can see, you know, already there's some nice artwork in that bottom right hand corner. Traditional, you know, if you've ever bought any of the big Forge World large heresy publications, you might be used to this kind of quality. I know I've got most of, in fact I've got all of those books, and the layout and quality of the publications is really, really nice. It has to be said, they know how to produce a good book. And we've got a little guide there on the command terminals, and then just, you know, we go into the details and depths of how to play the game, how to move, how to orientate. You can see there in that top right hand image that knights in this case wheel rather than just turn on the spot. But as this is an unboxing, I'm not going to go through all the rules because I need time to go and digest them myself, to be honest. As well as try and read the Kill Team rules as well. I've got quite a lot of rules to be catching up on. But yeah, we just skim through the pages. You know, it looks really... Some of this artwork is just phenomenal. And if you've never owned a Forge World publication, this is the kind of artwork you get regularly in every one of their books. So there we go then, guys. That is Adeptus Titanicus, the Grandmaster Edition, unboxed. Quite a lot of stuff in there. As I said at the opening part of this video, time will tell whether this game is going to fly, whether it's going to get the same support that we're seeing from things like Kill Team at the moment. Kill Team is massive amounts of release, lots of really cool box sets of small kill teams with pieces of terrain, really aimed at trying to get people into 40k. Will Adeptus Titanicus, you know, have that kind of support? It is a specialist game, so it is produced and looked after by Forge World. Even that has been sold mainstream, which fortunately for me meant that I could get it not at the retail price. So I was fortunate enough to pick this up for about £131, so a 25% saving over the astronomical price of £175. Is it worth £175 is a big question that has been floating around ever since the price was announced. Lots of people said no. A few fanboys said meh. But fortunately for me, I didn't pay full retail. Would I have paid full retail had I had only that one choice? I am not sure. Looking at the contents look fantastic. The detail compared to the full scale versions is really, really good. It's super detailed, like going down to just, you know, shin pads and weapons. They do look almost identical to their big boy versions. But does that justify a price of the 175 mark? Again, it's a difficult one to answer until I've started playing the game, and if it sits on the shelf and doesn't get any support from Forge World or Games Workshop, then I'll probably be disappointed. But hopefully there's going to be enough people that are interested from the various groups and social media channels that I do follow. There is a lot of interest, but will that interest wane over time? That is the big test. But I hope you enjoyed the unboxing. I hope you learned something new. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Let me know in the comment section if you have got Adeptus Titanicus, planning on getting it, maybe just picking up a Warlord just to paint it, just so it can sit as a display piece. Let me know in those comment section below, and I'll get replying with my opinions and thoughts, and interact with you guys that are watching the channel. But until then, I shall catch you guys on the next video.